is very, very risky, is a very risky business.
A non-nuclear steam explosion at a U.S. nuclear facility killed 4 people in 1986. But Howard is right. In America, there have been no deaths or injuries from nuclear accidents in commercial power plants. Physicist Bernard Cohen blames the media for singling out nuclear.
The media don't pay any attention to risk analyses. They just say this is radioactivity. They call it deadly radioactivity. I don't know why they call it deadly. It's not killing hardly anybody, if anybody. Nobody talks about deadly electricity, which, although over 1,000 people a year die from electrocution in the United States, nobody talks about deadly natural gas, although I believe it's 5,000 people a year die from asphyxiation from natural gas, things of that sort.
Have environmental groups unfairly targeted nuclear energy?
Well, you'll find actually that Public Citizen and other allied groups have been very active critics of the chemical industry and the aviation industry and the coal industry. So I don't know why you're trying to distinguish among them. We are safety watchdogs, and we're trying to improve health and safety for the American people, and the nuclear industry's record is nothing to shout about.
But still, you're not trying to shut the chemical industry or the aviation industry down, are you?
It is nothing to shout about.
But still, you're not trying to shut the chemical industry or the aviation industry down, are you?
No, we're not.
The record shows that some of these industries, coal for example, are environmentally unfriendly. Burning coal generates air pollution, acid rain, greenhouse gases, and cancer-causing chemicals, but little protest or fear. If you think the difference is radiation, think again. Since coal contains radium, a coal plant actually emits much more radioactivity than a nuclear plant. A nuclear plant's cooling towers emit only steam, water vapor.
The health effects of coal burning are thousands of times worse than the health effects of nuclear power, according to anybody's analysis, not my analysis necessarily, but they never report it. I've never seen that in print.
Scientists like Cohen, who rank risks according to cold statistical danger, seem to come up with a completely different picture than the public, which assesses risks more personally. What Cohen is doing is called risk analysis, determining statistically how dangerous various technologies actually are. What ordinary people engage in is risk perception, intuitively deciding how dangerous technologies seem. Where do our perceptions come from? Why do we perceive this technology to be dangerous rather than safe?
What was the source of the knowledge that you have, the ideas that you've had, the impressions that you've gotten of nuclear waste and nuclear power?
I think the very little that I know I probably heard on the news.
Okay.
I don't know very much.
I've heard stuff on the news and read it in the paper and watched TV programs based on what could happen, in Hollywood.
Television news, newspaper, public television.
Scientists like Hank Jenkins Smith have done extensive studies of the ways ordinary people think about nuclear power.
Most of what we know as a population about nuclear power and nuclear stuff in general is an amalgam of images of nuclear war. In some cases, the potential benefits, the technologies that can be harnessed, the energy that can be produced, but mostly images that are quite negative. Think about popular culture, which is one of the great deliverers of information about most concepts right now.
Problem in Sector 7G.
7G. These bits and pieces of popular mythology feed the way that people understand facts about these things.
Noise.
Most times, if you ask people, they'll say they really don't know a whole lot, but they still have a point of reference, and that is all these sort of vague linkages to awful events.
Huh? It's my problem! We're doomed!
Sector 7G is now being isolated.
It's got enormous implications. It creates this dread association, fear that the worst can happen.
Researchers say ordinary people use rules of thumb to measure risk. People tend to find technologies like nuclear power especially scary because of qualities that have nothing to do with how dangerous they are. First, there's the dread factor, the fear of a catastrophic disaster. Second, say scientists like psychiatrist Robert DuPont, an expert in fears and phobias, there's the issue of who's in control.
If you feel like you're in charge, you have the feeling that you can stop the risk, you can help yourself. It's the difference between driving a car and being a passenger in an airplane. When you're driving a car, you perceive your ability to stop or swerve or stay out of a situation. Whereas when you're the passenger in 14C, then you've got to depend on the air traffic control system and the mechanics at American Airlines and the pilot and everybody else who is going to keep you up there. So you get more afraid. Now, of course, the paradox here is that in the modern world, when someone else is controlling the risk, we're actually safer than when we control the risk. Because when someone else is controlling the risk, there are social institutions in place to reduce the risk. To fly an airplane, you actually have to have training. To drive an automobile, you don't. So that you're actually much safer when somebody else is controlling the risk. But the perception, the psychology is the opposite. So what happens with nuclear power, it's them. It's not me. It's somebody doing it to me that makes it unacceptable.
DuPont, who was attacked in the 1980s by anti-nuclear groups for expressing these views, identifies two other important reasons we fear nuclear power. It's unfamiliar. Remote, exotic technologies are much scarier than technologies we encounter every day. Finally, there's need. Since most Americans know that the U.S. has ample supplies of coal and natural gas, they have little incentive to confront their nuclear fears. With air travel, which can't easily be replaced, people make great efforts to overcome their anxieties.
On all four counts, nuclear power generates fear. It's a cataclysmic accident that people are concerned about. It's controlled by them, the utilities or the government or the scientists or whoever it is that is perceived as being the bad guys. It's unfamiliar to most people, and most people feel they don't really need nuclear power, that they can get their power from coal or oil or windmills or some other basis. They don't really need the nuclear power.
What's true for Americans is also true for Italians, Germans, and Swedes. But it's not true everywhere. There are countries where nuclear power is accepted, even popular.